Big fluff.
In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree.
Where Alf, the sacred river ran through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea. Yes, Xanadu.
I'm Kira.
Of course. You're Kira. But,
But?
I mean, don't I know you?
I don't think so.
Are you sure? Because,
Because?
well, I mean, I don't know. I was thinking, Oh, I'm sorry. Forget it.
So you're gonna do it?
Yes, we're going to do it. Total insanity. Huh?
Only if you think so.
Well, even if it is, it's worth a try. Xanadu. How do you think that'll look on a marquee?
Wonderful.
Hey everybody, I'm Joel Murphy.
And I'm Andy McIntyre.
This is Silver Linings Playback, the podcast where we watch maligned movies and we find their silver linings.
And we are actually looking at movies that killed careers this week.
Yes. Yes.
That actually killed careers.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope everyone enjoyed last week's show because we definitely
sure did.
Yeah. It was a fun exercise in kayfabe, I think, for both of us.
We kept kayfabe pretty well that whole run, I think.
I think so. I think, The Undertaker pre these last few years would have been proud of us,
Yes.
Now, like, that guy, you can't shut him up about talking about behind the scenes.
Part of me, loves that about him.
Although, it's funny, I guess technically we're competing with him now, and not we are the 20-0 against him on YouTube.
Yes.
As we've obviously recently launched video on YouTube. He is a YouTuber. I think it's funny to call The Undertaker that. It
is funny to call him a YouTuber. I would agree with that 100%.
His slide to influencer is almost complete, I think.
Yeah. Once he has affiliate links to various brands of hair braid wax.
Yeah, it is. It's a weird thing. We're going to get to this movie in a second, but this is how we started. So I'm seeing it through. But it's a weird thing to be a fan of all these wrestlers from the 90s who now have podcasts where they, advertise supplements and, very questionable things on their podcast. Like those pills that are greens or whatever.
Oh, A1 greens or whatever they are.
Hey, they're not paying us. They're those pills that are greens or whatever that I heard.
Oh, those pills that are greens, right.
That I for sure heard are dangerous and you shouldn't take.
Yeah. They certainly aren't sponsoring a podcast like Mackin' with Andy Mac.
Well, that's why you know the name so quick. And I didn't want to, throw shade at you. But yes, I'm talking specifically about you.
Shout out to Conrad Thompson.
So many pickup artists on your show lately.
So many pickup artists.
Anyway, as you can probably tell, this week we are talking about Xanadu, which is perhaps the most infamous. We started by doing The Phantom Menace, which is a pretty infamous, but this might be historically the most infamous film we've ever done.
In that it did spawn the Razzies.
Yeah, literally, if people don't know, this movie was the inspiration for the Razzies. That was the year that they were started, that they were like, we need an award to recognize how terrible we think this movie is. How
just god-awful this Olivia Newton-John roller disco vehicle is.
So I think for that alone, it's infamous. And we'll obviously talk about, I think you and I both have thoughts, having done 200 of these, about how earned its reputation is, but it definitely has that reputation as being a horrible movie. And this is Career Killer Month. And I think it's easy to say it definitely put the brakes on Olivia Newton-John's post-Grease career, that this was supposed to be her big, by herself breakout. She's the star role. She's the name on the marquee. Grease gave her, propelled her to fame, and then this was going to capitalize on that. And
and I mean, she'd already put out Physical, and
and so this was obviously hurt her career. You also have Michael Beck, who, it's very funny, like completely coincidentally, Molly and I just watched The Warriors recently. But I think you could make the argument too that he, after that film, was probably poised to be a leading man. And I don't think he was definitely on the come up. Right.
Between that and Megaforce.
Yeah. And I think this put the brakes on that for him. And then this is also the last movie that Gene Kelly ever did. So he quit acting after this movie. And, he's still like continued to be around Hollywood, and he lived until like 96. I was looking that up, but
so he had a good decade and a half after this.
But Jack Nicholson it, where he was like, I will not be acting anymore. I'm done. I don't want to do this.
Good for him, though.
Yeah, no, I mean, legendary career, obviously, unimpeachable career, and this didn't affect him in any way.
And and you can see in this movie, this is why he's one of the greats.
Yes, which I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about that as well, because it's actually exciting to have a chance to talk about Gene Kelly on this podcast.
Yeah, because that's usually not a thing,
right?
And that this movie is kind of a remake of an older Gene Kelly movie.
Is it?
It's like it takes a lot of plot similarities from, I forget the name of it. I'll let me check on the name, but there's an old Gene Kelly movie. In fact, his character Danny McGuire is is the same name in the original too. It's
Singing in the Rain.
Yes.
No, wait, that's La La Land. That was ripping that off.
Yeah, that's right.
Which, look, because you're looking this up, I'm going to throw some shade at La La Land, which we'll also never get to talk about because it's a beloved movie. But just watch Singing in the Rain, watch Gene Kelly in this as an older gentleman, and just really go back and watch La La Land and ask yourself, is this as good as classic Hollywood musicals? And look, I love Ryan Gosling, I love Emma Stone, but they are not dancing like Gene Kelly is dancing.
God no. Yeah. Oh God no.
And I think we just all need to be honest with ourselves. And I think
so.
Yeah, go ahead.
Gene Kelly played another character named Danny McGuire in a movie CoverGirl in 1944.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think that's the one that has like the total like it's not like the similar plot necessarily.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. But yes, anyway, La La Land, just put that side by side with Singing in the Rain and really
yes. And really just take a look and see
how you feel about, because I think what it is like people like Gene Kelly who, or Judy Garland or any of these people, Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, all that, like they danced their entire lives and they had a fluidity and a naturalness to it that it doesn't exist anymore. No one is trained to dance the way that Gene Kelly is as an actor. It's not expected because musicals aren't as big. So it's not actually like, again, Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone are both wonderful actors and I really like them, but it's just, they were never going to look as effortless as Gene Kelly because no one would. Because they no actor.
You just don't have a song and dance man like Gene Kelly anymore.
Yeah. So
or Danny Kaye or Bing Crosby or.
But yeah, it was just like there was a time when it was expected to be part of your repertoire, and that's not the case anymore. And so that's why it's just not in the toolkit in the same way.
No, now you have Russell Crowe who can neither sing nor dance, singing and dancing in musicals.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. I like to call it warbling. I think he was warbling. That's a 24601. How we know? We need a musical month. We should do a musical.
We should do a musical month. That's a good call.
But yeah, I think so. I think that's enough setup about this movie. Oh, the plot, as much as it's sensical, is that there's a guy and he paints album covers, but he wants to do different stuff. And he meets a Greek muse who also was a muse for Gene Kelly's character. And then he and Gene Kelly create the club Xanadu, and everyone roller skate disco dances there.
It's amazing how quickly you can summarize the plot of this bananas movie.
Because only like 4 things of importance happen, but a lot of things that are unimportant happen.
4? That's oof.
Well, those are all the sentences. Those characters open a club. I guess it could be one long sentence.
It is a bit of a run-on sentence, but yeah.
But
this movie completely lacks an antagonist, a ticking clock, a sense of urgency, a call to adventure.
Yeah.
Really any of it.
Well, the closest to an antagonist is his boss, who's reasonable, who's just like, do the job I'm paying you to do.
Yeah, right.
And don't break into this place with your date. Those are
used to show wrestling.
Yeah, which is true.
It is actually a true fact that building did used to have wrestling events.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of the setup. And then, but all of that to say, so I think that's the setup. The movie's infamously known as a terrible movie and a flop. It also went way over budget to make.
Like 14 times over budget.
Right. And there's stories too of Joel Silver, who's a pretty, like, that's a name you should know as a producer. Like, he's done a million things. He was fired from this movie and then rehired because of how over budget it went. But anyway, like, there's all of that stuff. But I think that to start it off, this movie is incoherent. It doesn't make any sense. It barely has a plot. It doesn't have an antagonist. All that is true. But I think its reputation, which is, I think, what we need to get at, stems from it came out at the wrong time, I think, because a lot of musicals, and I've seen a lot of old musicals, are incoherent and don't have a plot.
Oh, yeah, utterly nonsensical.
And are built around the music, because we'll talk about it when we get to the silver linings. The music in this is good and was popular at the time it was released. The album did well. But,
yes.
But this is the 80s. This is past a point when you could get away with this sort of, like, one, people's just interest in musicals was a lot lower. But on top of that, this was a musical that was meant to be about roller skating and disco, which were also both fads that people were sick of at the time this movie came out. So, like, everything about its instincts are wrong. It's making a musical, which is a tough sell in the 80s, and that musical is about disco roller skating, which is now a thing people are sick of. And
yes.
And so I think that's why people hate it. Because if this movie came out at the peak of disco, if it came out in the 70s, it would be like people would convince themselves they loved it and it was great. And it would be
if this came out in 1978 instead of 81 or 82, whenever it actually came out.
Yeah,
I think it would have hit.
Yeah, it would have been like, it would have captured the moment and people would have been like, it's great. And then they'd go back and watch it and be like, oh, wow, this is not.
Well, especially because there were other roller disco movies that were happening.
Right. So it's just, I think that there are these bigger forces at play that are the reason that it's maligned. And I say that as, like, we watch a ton of bad movies, and this movie, from a writing standpoint, is horrible, but from a bad movie standpoint, it's solidly in the middle of stuff that we watch.
Yeah, no, it is not nearly as bad as you would think the movie that spawned the Razzies would be. Right.
And it is interesting in that I think there's been a bit of reassessment of this movie, and that makes sense to me as well, in that I think newer generations like it because, again, they don't have the baggage of, to them, all disco anything is just kitsch now, and it's
it's purely camp.
So, like, I think they go into it, viewing it as this is a bad movie, whatever. I've heard it's bad, and then they're surprised that it's not as bad as they think, or they have fun with it, or there's a lot of ridiculous and silly 80s effects and cheesiness, and also, like, there's been a lot of reassessment. There's the camp thing, and then there's also, I was reading, there was a musical in 2017 that took this plot and lampooned, like, they rewrote the story to kind of make fun of the thing, but then they just used all the music. So it was like a parody of Xanadu called Xanadu that won Tonys.
Yeah, it was a well-regarded Broadway musical.
Yeah, so like clearly there's stuff here that people have found since it came out. But yeah, it's an interesting thing where and I think maybe you could argue that in some ways being infamously known for being bad is a mark in and of itself, because that means that your movie did connect with people in some way. Because if people watch it and feel nothing, that's when you're in trouble. If people watch it and go like
immediately forget about it,
yeah, that's probably a true bad movie. But a movie where you're like The Room or something like that, like clearly people do enjoy it, even if they enjoy how bad they think it is.
Well, especially because like it also spawned brilliant reviews like one word, Xana don't.
Which sounds like something from Spinal Tap, honestly.
But that was an actual review written about this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that there's something, because Xanadu, I'll say for me, because I had never seen this. I don't know if you had seen it before.
No, I there's a chance that I caught parts of it like when it was probably run on TV a fair amount throughout the years.
Yeah.
Like parts of it looked familiar, but I don't think I've seen this movie.
Well, it's funny too, because I've never seen it, and I, grew up doing musical theater and have a lot of friends. Like, this was not in the rotation of anyone that I knew, even ironically growing up. So like, yeah, I had never seen it, but I feel like just the name Xanadu and the reputation, I think there is something that it also kind of, it feels mysterious. Like I had been curious about this. Like it's a very evocative name, even though you watch it and you're like, I don't know why it's called this.
I was gonna say the Samuel Taylor Coleridge poem Xanadu is very famous.
Right.
It's the name of Charles Foster Kane's estate in Citizen Kane.
Right. Yeah, it's a word that pop culture has long been fascinated with, I think.
Yeah, because it's a cool word, Xanadu.
Right. And if people don't know, the poem is what Olivia Newton-John is quoting in that clip that we played at the beginning.
Yes, and Gene Kelly. They're alternating lines from the Coleridge poem Xanadu.
Yeah. Which, if you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to go read that poem and it'll clear everything up, I have bad news for you about that poem. It's not going to make more sense.
No, this is from the guy who wrote the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Like,
water, water everywhere. Which is the movie.
Let's all have a drink.
Can we admit it now that we're working on a script for Water, Water Everywhere, disco roller skating musical?
No, it's a synchronized disco swimming musical about the Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
I didn't want to give it all away. So they wear roller skates, but they're also underwater.
They're also in a pool. 7 casualties.
Yeah. And we're very excited about it. And I know I was just nagging them, but we are hopeful that Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone
will commit. Yes, Ryan Gosling is going to play the Ancient Mariner. Emma Stone is going to play the Albatross. It's going to be great.
I predict Oscars. No, what I predict is that Ryan Gosling will be nominated for Best Song at the Academy Awards, and he will have the performance of the night, but inexplicably not win.
Because Billie Eilish will do something decent.
Yeah, also Billie Eilish, if you want to write a song for our movie.
Yes, please. No, Billie Eilish is fantastic. I don't want to be shading Billie Eilish. I think she's truly phenomenal. But like that song was fine.
But also, yeah, if we're all honest with ourselves, because we all felt it for those of us who watched the performance, like I'm Just Ken is the bop that brought the house down that should have won.
Yeah, I think my favorite moment of the Oscars was how enthused Greta Gerwig was to watch that happen on stage.
Right. Also, this does actually feel like it ties into all of this in that I do think, as much shade as I threw at La La Land, Greta Gerwig has a clear love of classic Hollywood musicals. And I think Barbie came the closest to tapping into the feel and aesthetic. And that number, I'm Just Ken, feels like something from a Gene Kelly movie or something like that. Like, yeah,
no, that movie, without like, I mean, it was intentional, but like without feeling intentional and forced the way La La Land did.
Right. It's the difference between La La Land is openly trying to reference musicals. It's like, I'm like these musicals, and with Barbie, it's just a confidence that you feel it. You feel the authenticity when you watch it because it's in every pore. And the other inexplicable thing is how Greta Gerwig wasn't nominated for Best Director, because that's all from her.
Yeah.
Anyway, Xanadu.
This movie, it's like, it's weird because the musical rules are a little weird, because sometimes it's like diegetic music that's just playing. Other times it's score, but there's a song. And then other times there are actual full-blown musical numbers that are those weird, like musical-esque asides that, they're singing, but like maybe in the real world they're not singing. That's how they're expressing the emotion in the time. And then there's like the last 17 minutes where it's just a bananas roller disco screaming Xanadu and doing stomp routines.
Right. And I think some of the explanation for that is that ELO, who did a lot of the music for this, had just written music. And it wasn't,
and they kind of shoehorned it into certain places.
Right. So I think that's a lot of the problem with this in general, is that the narrative was built around the music and not vice versa. So there's a big case of just them trying to make things fit. And then you get weird stuff like there's an animated underwater sequence, which I was reading was because that they just needed to pad the time.
And so they had Don Bluth animate a sequence. And what's notoriously really quick to do? Cell shaded hand-drawn animation.
Yeah. I don't know how that logic works, but I also guess they didn't want to get the actors back to do it, It's
like quicker than finding Olivia Newton-John's phone number is having Don Bluth animate a sequence. Which a lot of it was actually stolen cells from Thumbelina, but let's not put that out there.
Well, right. I think the real secret to that is I think some of that was previous existing things that were just it's like that old Disney stuff where you see like Robin Hood and Jungle Book.
Where Little John and Baloo are the same character, and there's a lot of examples.
Which I don't know how much time that saves, but that it saves some amount of time because you're just tracing things you already drew.
Right.
But yeah, it is. I mean, also in the same way that we've passed the golden age of musicals, we definitely passed the golden age of hand-drawn animation like that.
I mean, it's now like kitschy to do hand-drawn animation when everyone's like, why don't you just use the computer?
Yeah, just ones and zeros. That's what you do. But yeah, to your point though, yeah, it's just like, there is no rhyme or reason to how the music works or what the music is saying or how it relates to what we've just seen. Outside of, again, the end musical number is the only thing that feels specific to this movie and
I would push back and say that the dueling big band rock band number kind of fits between the differing point of views between Gene Kelly and Michael Beck.
That's true. And that did feel very much like an old Gene Kelly bit. That felt like something that they would do. That musical number, the song and dance with Olivia Newton-John and Gene Kelly, those felt very classic musical. Yeah. So you had those moments, but then a lot of times it is just, music that was popular at the time just being played for some reason and then acting like it makes sense.
I'm just going to throw it out there. You can do a lot worse than ELO. I love ELO. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're great. Yeah.
No, and even like beyond the big hits, like their catalog is pretty solid start to finish.
All right, what are your 10 favorite ELOs?
All right, so Telephone Line.
Okay.
Obviously Don't Bring Me Down is a classic.
Obviously, yeah.
Mr. Blue Sky, can't go without that.
Yep.
And the rest. Strange Magic, that's a good one. And the others.
Yeah, Mr. Blue Sky is so good.
Such a good song.
That's the thing. Obviously, we don't need to name them all. We all know 10 ELO songs that we love. But if they only wrote one and it was Mr. Blue Sky, they could retire.
That would have been enough.
They could retire happily. Yeah, that is definitely one of my most heavily played songs since Guardians of the Galaxy came out. Like, it just...
if you don't get happy listening to that song, that's a you problem.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. Check
you should probably start talking to someone.
Yeah. You should talk to Mr. Blue Sky.
Yeah. Say, hey, Mr. Blue.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to Mr. Sun. Talk to the whole gang.
Yeah, all the gangs.
Yeah.
All the whole crew.
Yeah. But all right, what else do we need?
Dooya is another great one by Yellow.
Yeah. I don't know. The effects are really cheesy. They literally do a Poochie thing at one point with Olivia Newton-John where she disappears like in the same way that he did. Where they just freeze the frame and like lift her up out of it.
And then like at the end, he meets a waitress at the bar that looks exactly like Kira, but isn't.
I didn't. Is that Kira? I don't know. I mean, there's I don't even know if there's a point in saying this except that we're just still in this portion of like, it's understanding and interest in Greek mythology is loose at best. Like, it feels like they didn't have Wikipedia back then, but if they did, it feels like someone. So honestly, it's pre-Wikipedia, so someone probably was definitely on coke. Let's start there. But trying to remember what they learned about Greek mythology in their elementary school.
That she is based on the muse of dance Terpsichore, and she goes by Kira.
Yeah, well, there's that. Yeah, and then like we do get Zeus, but then he says that he's not calling himself that anymore. And he has a wife, but I don't even think we identify who that wife is.
Well, because the wife might be Hera, but it might also be Mnesme, who is the mother of the muses.
Right. Yeah, it's unclear. Yeah. But yeah, like you get that, like those sequences that are like it wants to talk about muses, and that's obviously kind of the inspiration, but it's not really interested in actually talking about what the muses were.
Well, and also just the fact that Michael Beck goes into Olympus, I guess, and it's Tron, and he's trapped in the light cage from Flash Gordon.
That is a stunningly accurate description of exactly what happens in that scene. And then they're like, no
so
one.
Have we pivoted? I don't know. Is that what that is?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's pivot here on the fact that they go like, no one has ever left here before, and then he just leaves.
He's like, has anyone tried to leave before? Is that?
Also, no one's come here before. You know what? You're the first. Fuck. Whatever. Just go.
All right, it's fine. Just listen. All right, just make a dance disco club with a classic song and dance man.
So is this Kira or is this a new person? Shut up. We got to wrap this. We are $10 million over
credits.
budget. Yeah.
Roll credits.
Yeah. None of it makes any. Well, it's also, I wasn't even clear on, like, Kira obviously seems like she's supposed to also be the muse that once inspired Gene Kelly's character, but that feels sweaty in that no one's really clear on how that all worked. Also,
yeah, now it's
also they banged, right?
Oh.
And by they, I mean Gene Kelly and Olivia Newton-John during the filming.
I think so.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like no matter which person you are in that relationship, like you take that opportunity.
Oh,
like it's 1980 and I get a chance to bang Olivia Newton-John. I'm taking that opportunity.
I thought you were leading with Gene Kelly, but maybe that says more about me. But
well, I feel like the other one goes without saying.
Right. Also, Gene Kelly did, he was married to a woman that I think was like 40 years younger than him or something. Like
cool.
When he died. Yeah. Who claims that she didn't know. This was recent. This all just came out because I was like looking at stuff for this. But apparently she said she didn't notice the age difference, which like I bet he did.
Did it mention that she was blind and had no sense of touch?
Apparently, Gene Kelly was really into Pokemon cards. They just had a lot. Look, my wife is slightly younger than me, and there are times that I'm like we have conversations, and it's baffling to me. If you can marry someone 40 years younger than you and not, Yeah. My wife's a year and a half younger than me, so we're pretty much on the same page. Yeah. Every once in a while, you're like, remember when you were in high school and you watched Friday? And she was like, what? I don't know if that math works, but
It might. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm ready to pivot and talk about, because this movie does have some genuine silver linings that I think are worth talking about.
Gene goddamn Kelly.
Full stop.
Yeah.
The dude, man, what a cool dude.
No, he's just the most charismatic performer to ever exist, and I could watch him dance at any age forever. He's so good at it.
And the dude did his own roller skating stunts with his own roller skates.
Of course. None of that sentence surprises me in the least.
No, and it shouldn't, but it's bears saying because he was old.
Yeah. Yeah, he was 150 years old when we filmed this.
Yes. No, he is phenomenal. The biggest silver lining is that if you listen to this podcast, have not watched a lot of Gene Kelly movies, and you go and watch some Gene Kelly stuff, that's the ultimate silver lining because he's the best.
Yeah, and if you've only seen him in this, first of all, see Singing in the Rain, because Singing in the Rain is one of the greatest films ever made. It's just delightful.
Singing in the Rain is a great tune by itself. Debbie Reynolds. Oh, the movie's so great.
No, it is great. And if you've never seen it and you see things like La La Land now, then you'll go like, oh, that's what they were trying to do.
Oh, they did it right.
Oh, okay.
I see. Okay.
That makes total sense to me.
I'm even more glad Moonlight won now.
Oh, wait. Babel is still this, but sad? It's literally the plot of this, but it's just dark and sad? Why? Or Babylon. I said Babel.
Babylon, yeah. Damien Chazelle has seen one movie.
It's very clear. Babel is it's like 4 movies, so that's completely different.
Babel is incomprehensible. It's great, I think.
I don't know. I liked parts of it for sure.
But anyways, Babylon we've done for this podcast, and it's awful.
Right, but it is the plot of Singing in the Rain. Loosely.
It is the plot, like word for word almost.
Yeah, because it's all about talkies. Anyway, not the point. Yeah, Gene Kelly's great. Watch a bunch of Gene Kelly movies. He's delightful in this, and he looks older, but you wouldn't know it from the way that he moves and acts.
Yeah. No, he's phenomenal. He's great. I would say that the second silver lining is Olivia Newton, by God, John.
Yeah, 100%. Olivia Newton-John.
What a fantastic singer. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, no, Olivia Newton-John is great. It is truly a shame that this put the brakes on her as a leading actor. Like, that should have happened. She's delightful in everything. And she also had a hit song in this movie that is very, like, enjoyable. It's a great song. And I know that the song was the only thing I had heard from this, you know. Besides all of ELO's catalog, as we clearly established.
And we clearly are big fans.
We know all the songs that they wrote for this movie, and we could rattle them off, but we're not going to. But
because we could.
But yeah, like her Xanadu song, like I knew that's a hit. Like I grew up listening to that.
Yeah, that song. I mean, she had a ton of great songs. Have You Never Been Mellow? The whole Grease soundtrack, Physical. Right.
But I'm just saying, as literally a silver lining for this movie is.
Oh no, the song Xanadu is great.
Yeah. So no, Olivia Newton-John she's super charismatic and lovely and great, and she's charming in this, even though I didn't understand anything her character did at any point.
No. And I will say, I think my favorite part of the whole movie was her like really old timey, like basically USO show inspired dance number with Danny Kaye.
Yeah.
Or Gene Kelly, not Danny Kaye, Gene Kelly.
Yeah. I knew what you meant. But yeah, just seeing her dance with Gene Kelly was delightful. And yeah, the fact that this was like showing us their relationship before, I think, as much as I understood it. But yeah, they did a retro number that Gene Kelly choreographed. And they're delightful together. They had great chemistry together, just period. And I honestly probably could have watched a movie that was just the two of them, you know.
Just hanging out.
Just vibes.
Yeah, it's before sunrise, but it's them.
Also, I'll just throw it out there. If Gene Kelly had played Danny Zuko in Grease, I think it would have been amazing.
I think he would have been just as believable as a teenager.
100. I think he would have been more believable as a teenager. You just dye his hair jet black and slick it back. We'd all accept it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, they were so old in Greece.
They really were.
Stockard Channing was 31.
Yeah. Those are hitting like 90210 stats. Like,
well, that's the thing is like we always joke about how old the 90210 cast members were playing teenagers, but like Jason Priestley or Luke Perry, they were like 23 playing 17.
no, I think it was the actress who played Andrea.
Well, Gabrielle Carteris was like 29.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they liked her by the time they found out how old she was, so they couldn't cut her.
Yeah. Yeah. And she was good. Like, it was fine.
No, she was good.
Yeah.
Andrea was great.
Yeah.
But no, like Jeff Conway was like 36.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
And it's weird too, because also I think they could get away with it because everyone looked older then anyway. Teenagers looked older. Like, everyone looks younger now. So
yeah. I mean, yeah, you and I are 63 years old.
I like to say 63 years young.
Okay.
Yeah. I like to say
Do
it.
you, man.
I don't believe it.
You.
I don't believe it, but I like to say it.
Yeah. Hey, whatever floats your boat, man.
But yeah, also, we haven't done one of these in a while. These are always fun. Olivia Newton-John met Matt Latanzi, who had a minor role during filming, and they ended up getting married in 1984 and had a child together.
Oh, good. We always silver lining on set love.
Yep. Well, most of the time.
Love, not lust and grossness.
Okay, sure. Then yes. Yeah. But yeah, always good. She met her husband and had a kid. So, you know.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. We haven't talked about the final number.
I mean, you've kind of alluded to it, but I think this is the time to elaborate that the movie knew how to end on a high note, for sure.
Yeah, so the last, I don't know, felt like 4 hours of the movie was...
We all felt like Zeus and whatever wife that was in that. The passage of time while watching Xanadu felt like an eternity, and it was impossible to know where it started or ended or where we were at.
Yeah, it was wild. But yeah, it's this big song dance step routine on roller skates at the Xanadu Club, and there's like 3 or 4 different movements, and at one point like Gene Kelly's leading the charge, and then there's like solo dance numbers, and it's wild.
Well, it's they finally open the club. They open Xanadu, and it does feel like you're at a club and especially like a disco club where, yeah, it kind of feels like there's a DJ and we're going from one record to another seamlessly, and it's all kind of blending together. And it's this very extended dance number with a lot of different performers and styles and aesthetics.
Yeah, there's
all
like
happening.
the Newsies or like the Dick Tracy extras, and then there's like the new wave people, and then there's the marching band people. It's wild.
It is like gloriously, in excess. Like, there is too much happening, but in a good way.
Yeah, no, it's super fun. And if you don't watch this whole movie, which probably shouldn't.
No, there's no reason to, I don't think.
But the last scene might be worth finding a YouTube clip of.
Which I'm sure you could. Yeah, you could just find that final bit.
And while you're on YouTube, you might as well go and subscribe to the Hobo Radio or Hobo Trash Can YouTube channel so you can see every new episode of this going forward. It's probably a thing you should do.
Yep. Yeah. However you are watching this, if you're still listening to the audio podcast, you can click on those liner notes and watch the video of us, which is like audio, but with moving images. You know how it works. I don't have to explain this.
You know video.
Yeah, you guys, you're a smart crowd. You get this stuff. I don't have to talk down to you.
The regular SLP listener is at worst above average in intelligence.
Yeah, and at best,
super geniuses.
Exactly. I heard everyone at Mensa, they're not only do they listen, but they're required to get it. They ask.
Yeah, well, it's actually, so you have to submit a valid IQ test score. Plus, you have to show proof of your subscription to the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you're, which is the other thing too, that obviously Andy is too, nice to mention because Andy doesn't like discussing money. But I'll just go ahead and say it. We do have a Patreon as well.
We do have a Patreon.
Yeah, and you could donate it, and it launched a few weeks ago, and we've already, some people have been signing up, which is very exciting. And I think we're not gonna. I do look. A lot of podcasts just read a lot of names, and we're gonna try not to do that. But it is new, and so I do want to shout out some of the first people to sign up, and our first two superfan contributors. Yeah, which I know the first one to sign up, and it's a name that you and I know well. It was one JMO, Jonathan Monroe, and that made me happy. Bingle Balls. Old Bingle Balls himself. And if you want to know what Andy is talking about, here's what JMO sounds like. Well, that didn't play through the thing.
Bingle Balls.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
And so he's one of our super fan subscribers. Also, my good friend Rich Marco is one of our others. And so shout out to them for kicking off the Patreon. Very excited about that. And you could also, sign up and you can suggest movies, suggest themes, interact with us. I have a clip of Rich Marco as well. I don't want him to feel left out. So that was JMO, but this is what Rich Marco sounds like. Beef. Yeah, that is exactly, that's my boy Ricky. That's what he sounds like. But yeah, so check those out. Silver Linings or patreon.com/Silver Linings Playback. And yeah, like get in there now, because one of the things that we are going to have is people have the ability to influence what shows we do in the future. So they're already there, and they're going to control everything. The two of them. Yeah. You also get power of attorney over Andy. I've made it clear a few weeks ago, I want to be put in a chock full of nuts, container, and have my remains put on the top of a mountain in Nepal. So. All right, so fine. So I have to take down that you don't get to be Joel's healthcare proxy anymore. Sorry, no, I did not agree to that at all. That's not how I remember it. I'm pretty sure that's what you said you wanted. You insisted, in fact. Yeah, and if you're a big shot producer and you want to get on board of water everywhere, hit us up. Yeah, hit us up. That's only one of the dozens of brilliant money-making ideas that we will let you have first dibs on as a super fan contributor. Yeah. One of the other ones, we're going to make a musical about the making of the musical of the, new Xanadu. Yeah. It's another one. Yep. So you can... Gold. You can have that as well. And I think the only thing left to say is Xanadu.
Silver Linings Playback is a production of HoboTrashCan.com. If you enjoyed the show, please rate or review it on Apple Podcasts. Hear more great shows on the Peak Sloth Podcast Network.